guys, it's Jenna with Dog Liaison, where I coach you on how to enhance your dog's mental health. In this video, I'm going to be looking at specifically the dog body language that pertains to separation anxiety training. We're going to be breaking down what stress signals to look for and what can help you. Now, this video is not going to necessarily teach you how to recover separation anxiety. For that, I recommend watching this video right here. Open that in a new tab, watch that first, and then maybe come back. But now we're going to look at actual training sessions. We're going to look at actual dogs being left alone, and we're going to dissect some of their body language. Let's get into it. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to spend just a short period of time showing you videos that we anticipate or we know are over threshold dogs. They've been left alone and they're definitely in a fit of anxiety. They're scratching, they're howling, they're crying. And then I'm going to transition into the majority of the videos, which are dogs that are demonstrating subtle stress behaviors, subtle stress responses. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to wrap up with some successful goodbyes, some successful dog training, leaving your dog alone, what it really should look like. So let's get into it. This is Elliot. When Elliot joined the RP, this was actually a video of him prior to joining the RP, and his humans would leave him alone, and you would see that escalation, right? He starts off kind of doing the stiff stare, and then it turns into the vocalizations. Then he will start actually scratching and clawing until he eventually crawls right out of the crate, or out of the pen rather. Separation anxiety is often correlated to escape artists, or at least the attempt to escape. We see a lot of dogs demonstrating that escape, or at least trying to. We hypothesize, this is just a guess, that they're probably trying to get to where they last saw their human. So wherever they saw their human go out that door, so that means I need to be by that door. I don't know what else I'm going to do once I'm there, but I need to be where I saw my human go. That's what we hypothesize is the function of that. So that's definitely a dog far over threshold. I also want to say before I move on, I'm going to do my best to mute some of the vocalizations so that you don't have to worry about hearing dogs barking in the background a whole lot. I know that, especially for noise sensitive kids, if they hear another dog barking, even on the YouTube video, that's going to cause them anxiety. So I'm going to do my best to mute them or turn down the volume on these cases. And speaking of that, I'm going to actually completely mute this one because Lainey here, she's gonna be making quite a bit of talking. So just know that as they're walking back into their house, Lainey is definitely barking. You'll be able to see her kind of go off there. And she is in quite a fit of anxiety now that her humans are returning. Sometimes leaving your dog alone is not even the hard part. It's the returning, when all of that pent up anxiety finally gets unleashed. And let's talk about her kind of staying back in this crate here before she can actually come out. I'm going to replay it so that you can kind of hear that actually her human does let her come out right away, but Lainey demonstrates that fear before she'll actually walk out through the crate. So you can see that there's definitely like a hesitation to come out, which I think a lot of times we would wonder, if she wants out, why is she all of a sudden kind of demonstrating that fear as she's walking out? A lot of that is just pent up stress. Remember that anxiety and stress doesn't always have to be logic based. It doesn't have to be what we would assume reasonable. What we need to know is that this dog has been through a lot of stress, was just left alone for several hours, and has all of this built up stress that she was in depression. She was in depression in her crate, and now she's being let out, and she is not going to respond behaviorally very logically, right? You see that kind of soft wag. We see her kind of explode with eruption, right? Now, the thing is, a lot of times people will say, oh, look how happy she is. I think we should simplify this and say she's super aroused, right? Okay, so this is Lainey a little bit later. This is still early in Lainey's recovery journey. But now I want to kind of show you some dogs that are not necessarily doing the excessive whimpering, excessive stress responses that we see with Elliot and Lainey. But now I want to show you really what we're actually looking for, because I think oftentimes we only are looking for, did my dog bark or did my dog cry? Those things are really minimal compared to what we actually want to note. So we would look for things like the fact that her tail is curled over here. We would look for the fact that her head is towards the door. We may look at the fact that her legs are kind of stretched out underneath her as opposed to tucked. In a moment, we'll see her kind of sniff this bed area, and I think she may even lay down on that mat there. Those are the behaviors we're actually looking for that actually mean anything to us. See how that tail is starting to kind of come down and curl off to the side? That would be noteworthy. Now, when I'm talking you through these behaviors that I'm observing, I want to talk about a couple of things. The first is that we don't necessarily want to create some sort of association. I think a lot of times people would say, oh, she is, curling her tail off to the side. That must be a bad thing. I don't think it's fair for us to just kind of make those judgment calls based off of a single video alone. We need a whole lot more context. We would want to know, how is the breed affecting her behavior? Is this a normal response for her? So we would want to be looking at context for the given dog for sure. Nevertheless, these are still things that we would log. So now you can see there's a clear distinction between her tail here versus when her tail was over here and it was up, right? And then even as she came over here, it started you'll see it kind of drip off to the side. So that tail transition is something that we can note and make sure that we're logging. That kind of brings me into my next discussion, which is that when we're observing these, we really want to be logging what we're seeing without necessarily attributing association. We don't necessarily know. See how now she's increasing the proximity to the door, right? That would be something we would log. So here's Ollie. And Ollie was an interesting case because he demonstrates some interesting behaviors that in other cases would be stress responses. For him, they were not as high stress as others. So you're going to see that he kind of is standing sort of awkwardly. We can see the two paws separated here, right? We'll notice that he gets closer to the door. Got a little shake off there. We would note that his body posture is like facing this way, but his head is turned towards the door. Those are all things we would log. Again, we would log that he did step away, but decided to walk towards the door. We see all these little sneezes that he's giving. We can't necessarily interpret what any of this means right now, because again, we're going based off of one video, but you really want to log and find trends. So now he's going to start mumbling. I'm going to mute it so that you guys don't have to hear that. We noted, oh, this was another one. For Ollie's case, we definitely noticed that when he would get it by the leashes and do this little scratch here, we noticed that meant that his stress was building. We would see there was a progression between the whimper that he does right here. Then he would start scratching, and you'll notice it's going to get closer to the door. None of these dogs look like they're in just an absolute meltdown per se, but we definitely see that they're demonstrating early stress signals and they're on their way to the panic. This is what I mean by we don't need to see a dog absolutely losing their mind like we did in the first two videos to know that stress is building. We can look at these signals that they're giving us here to know, oh, this was too easy, this was too difficult, this was just right. In the RRP, my signature program, the Recovering Rover program, we actually have a little concept that we call Goldilocks effect, which is that we're not looking for anything to be too difficult. We're not looking for anything to be too easy. We're looking for things to be just right. We really want to measure all of our dog's body language against that Goldilocks effect. The problem is that when you're first starting off and you're first starting to learn stress behaviors, you don't really know what any of that means. I think many dog trainers are going to be the first ones to step up and say, oh, that means that Ollie is not very over threshold here. He's not, climbing on walls. On the other hand, other trainers would look at this and say, oh, Ollie is over threshold. He is very stressed. We want to instead look at it very objectively and just see what behaviors are actually occurring. We're getting the huffs. Are the stress responses becoming more frequent? Like definitely he's displaying more stress in the latter end of this video than he was in the beginning. And is he demonstrating abnormal behaviors or very normal behaviors? The more normal the behavior is, the more likely it is that we don't need to give it too much significance. Once he starts giving you very abnormal responses, now we know, okay, our stress is building. On the other hand, here's another video of Ollie later on where he goes in and lays, gives that big deep yawn, and rests on the bed. He does look at the door for a little while, and I can't remember if in this video he ends up resting his head or not, but he actively chose to walk away from the door and come in and lay. That is a healthier behavior, right? We definitely see that this is a healthier behavior than the video we just saw him in. So here is a video of Lucy where Human is going to be taking their other dog out and she's going to be staying behind. Now, if you just look at this frame, what are some things that you're going to notice, right? First thing that I notice is that tail that's staying up at the tip, the wrinkle in the ear posture. Those two things are very obvious and very clear behaviors that we would want to note. We'll see how that evolves or changes throughout the video. One of the things that we learned to track about Lucy was her blink pattern. So you can see that she doesn't blink a whole lot here, but then we get those very clear, distinct blinks. So we learn to track that. We can see the tail has kind of gone down a little bit. We got that fidget and into that little like more alert posture. And now she's going to start barking. So there was a clear progression. We could see it in the little fidget that started the kind of the chain event. The window's open, so that also is causing some noise sensitivity there. And all of these little behaviors that occur first are the ones we actually want to be looking for, not, oh, like she started barking and now we need to see what's going on over here. Like it's a dog barking and in distress, guys. That's what it looks like. What we care about is over here. This is more important. This is a personal favorite video of mine because you'll see that Elliot actually ends up going close to the door pretty soon after they leave. And if I skip ahead a little bit, bear with me as you can kind of watch him kind of jump. He ends up putting himself in that sit and he ends up sitting at that door like that frame the entire 6 minutes, guys. And that's not healthy. And if I unmute it, you'll hear that he's not whimpering, he's not crying or anything, but he's just staying next to the door the entire time. That is not what we're going for. It doesn't matter that he laid down. You'll see that he starts spinning. He gets a little bit more upset. That tail goes up. These are all stress responses that we would want to note. My personal stylistic choice. I don't personally mind if the dogs go up to the door, but I want to see them walk away from the door. I don't generally recommend that we let the dogs just kind of stay by the door the entire time. In majority of the cases that I work with, I want to see them move away from that door and go rest somewhere else. So these are all behaviors that stiff stare right at that door. This is a playing video, by the way, like this is playing. This is not a frozen screen. We would want to see some action is happening, that we're not just staying in this slumped tension. Here is a video of Kiwi. You'll see that she does end up falling asleep in this mission. So this is definitely one that we want to go for. But interestingly enough, she does end up going up to the door, or up to the baby gate rather. But you can see that she's a little bit more slouched in this position. Right now, her humans are putting on their shoes and stuff. So they're doing some actions behind this wall. And if I skip ahead a little bit to when they actually walk out, you'll see she puts herself in that sit. Okay, so there's progression there. In some cases, like in the case we just saw with Elliot, perhaps this sit would be bad. But now, if we skip forward, we'll see that it actually builds into a nice lay position that she gives us. Right? And she ends up kind of playing with herself and hanging out and stuff. So this is what I mean by we really have to log and stay as objective as we possibly can. If your trainer is not currently having you look at your videos this intensely and logging these early stress responses, then how are you ever going to be able to prevent your dog from getting into that threshold experience? One of the things that I hear a lot of clients say before they join the RP was like, yeah, we were making progress and then it all just kind of turned around and now our dog is crying again. Generally, when I hear that, in some cases, what that tells me is that they weren't really making progress before. There was probably some of these early stress behaviors that I've shown you in this video today that were overlooked, that didn't get seen, definitely didn't get logged. And so when your dog finally did start demonstrating those overt stress signals, they got overlooked and you didn't get to necessarily see them. And so when your dog did start demonstrating those overt stress signals, it seemed like it came out of the blue. And yet it was there all along because your dog was indeed demonstrating early stress behavior. Here's another example of Jojo or Banjo. He's going to end up laying down on his little blankie over here, but we will see him kind of start this nice little circle One of the things that mom discovered was that she could tell his degree of stress based off of how big his circle was. If his circle was kind of tight, that was okay. If his circle was really big and he started kind of walking over here and up the stairs, that was indication of more stress to be aware of. That level of specificity is what you need when you're resolving dog separation anxiety. You need to be a master at studying your dog's behavior sequences. You'll see him kind of get up, he's going to crawl into his little ball, and then he's going to end up staying there the entire time. Now, when you guys are doing your desensitization protocol for training separation anxiety, you should be able to skip through the videos just like I'm doing here with Banjo. And it should seem like there's hardly any changes. And he's just resting there the entire time. And you get those deep sighs, right? That is what you are trying to reach when you are resolving dog separation anxiety. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and smash that like button. Consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Make sure you download in the description box your free separation anxiety FAQ. And if you're looking for more tutorials on resolving your dog separation anxiety, check out these two videos right here. We'll see you guys next time.